welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be continuing on from our previous vlog, talking about the two-part Series 5 epic, The Pandorica Opens and The Big Bang, which is written by Stephen Moffat and is directed by Toby Haynes. In the last video we got a bit too long, so we had to cut this into two parts. Part 1 mainly talks about The Pandorica Opens. If you're interested in that, please watch part 1. This is part 2, and it's going to mainly focus on the second half, the Big Bang. Now, this was a story. This particular episode was the one which, at the time, people used to hate. Now people seem to really like it, and one of the aspects of it seems to be that the story feels. It's very strange and it's very unlike any other Doctor Who story, especially the finale. Usually the finales focus more on the confrontation between our heroes and our villains, with the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Daleks and the Cybermen in part 2, in series 2, the Master, Daleks again, the Master again. But here it's something different. Despite a Dalek appearing in the story, they're not really the main threat, and the story is much more focused on this like wibbly wobbly adventure, and is mainly the obstacle in a way is not a character per se, and so our characters have got to look around for these situations to try and deal themselves in. Very strange kind of story structure, and I think the reason why it wasn't popular at the time was because it was such a different way of telling a Doctor Who story, specifically a finale, especially when we have a Doctor Who monster in it, but it has a cameo and it's one of the biggest Doctor Who monsters ever released. Now, as we get into the story itself, some of you might even be wondering, how the hell could they conclude and wrap up the story from the last episode, in which the Doctor's imprisoned, Amy is murdered, Rory is now stuck on his own. River Song is stuck in an exploding TARDIS, seemingly destroyed when the TARDIS was destroyed with it. And seemingly every star in existence had gone supernova before it was able to heat up a planet for life to exist. How the hell do you resolve that? And what this story does, to start off the adventure, the pre-credit sequence, is so bizarre, so bonkers, that whether you like it or not is kind of irrelevant. It's enjoyable and crazy as hell. We start off with the same shots that we start off with in the 11th hour, where Melody Pond, the younger version of, not Melody Pond, what am I on about? Amelia Pond, the younger version of Amy, is praying to Santa on Easter to solve the crack in her wall, and then it plays out exactly as we remember it. She's talking about the crack. She's a bit scared of it. She hears a noise. She goes to investigate out through a window. However, the shed is completely fine. The Doctor doesn't appear. The Doctor in this timeline did not exist in that capacity. That is just such an eerie, just a strange concept. We also have Amelia talking with her auntie and her therapist about this painting she had done about just a night sky, a usual night sky with the moon and stars and everything. But the two adult characters seem to be very put off by this. This is some sort of strange aspect to her paintings. So the therapist decides to take Amelia outside to look up into the sky. What do they not see? Stars. Seems like any other night, just maybe the stars are, maybe it's cloudy. Until the therapist goes, Amelia, you know there's no such thing as stars. Whoa. And we get a scene then in which she's kind of over-listening to the two adults as she's upstairs, where we get a quick glimpse of somebody through the door posting an email not an email, posted a letter through the door, and Amelia picks it up and she reads that, go to the gallery, go to this museum and look up this particular item in the museum. And so the day after, Amelia takes her auntie to look at whatever's there. They find this expedition, we got these penguins, these Neanderthals. You ever get to see 2 stone Daleks that have been fossilized after the event of the crack. And then we see it, the Pandorica, out in the open in a museum. And Amelia tries to hide from her auntie, to which she succeeds. It goes completely at night, to which Amelia then goes to the Pandorica, touches it, it starts opening. And what we expect to see is, of course, the Doctor being in there from what we can gather. However, it opens up and it's Amy Pond, alive and well, stating, okay, this is where it's going to get complicated, as we cut into the credits. That line's a bit cheesy, and it's very, has that like fairy tale feel, especially, and it does kind of, it's really cool actually to see a Doctor Who story playing around with time like this. We see an event which we've already seen before in the series, however it plays a different way without the involvement of the Doctor. That's really cool. And then we got the whole thing with Amelia Pond, and I think despite you liking it or not, this opening, I think it does a very good job at setting up the themes and aspect of the story. However, it does kind of bring up a little point that the story narratively and theoretically wise has very little to do with the previous episode. It feels like these two, this two-parter, could very well be two completely different episodes in terms of their theme and structure. And then we cut back to Rory holding the dead body of Amy Pond, as he's basically explaining the lights are going out, you know, this could be at the epicenter of everything, death, destruction, the universe is destroying, and we could be dying, get raced out of time, twice in Rory's case. When all of a sudden, the Doctor just teleports in front of him with a mop and a fez, explaining that Amy is not dead. Well, she is dead, only she's not. And the Pandorica has the ability to revive her. The way this scene kind of plays out, I'm not particularly keen on. It's kind of taking this really serious and dramatic moment and giving it this this silly turnaround event. But it does have this whole wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey thing, which the story does love to play around with. The Doctor gives Rory his sonic screwdriver and tells him to open the Pandorica because the Doctor's stuck in there. To which Rory's like, no you're not, you're right in front of me. It's like, well, I was, or am. From your point of view I am, from my point of view I was. Time travel, it's complicated. But go and save me, put my sonic screwdriver back in Amy Pond's pocket, and then we'll all be sorted. So Rory goes into the basement, to which the Doctor gets freed, quite easily in fact, from the outside by Rory using the sonic screwdriver. It was established earlier on that the Doctor could easily get into the Pandorica through his sonic screwdriver, so there's some nice little continuity there, nice little setup for how this, and doesn't feel too massive leap of concept of how Rory could just open it with the sonic screwdriver. And I love the Doctor's reaction where he's just like, how the hell did you do that? You gave me your sonic screwdriver. No, I didn't. It's right in my hand. And then he kind of touches and it sparks, and the Doctor realises it's the same sonic screwdriver from different points in its own timeline. To which the Doctor goes to see Amy Pond's body, and he's like, I'm so sorry, she's dead. And we have a scene in which I don't know how to feel about. In some ways I like, in some way I don't. It kind of plays into this whole theme that the Doctor has, where the 11th Doctor has in Series 5, in which what he does is he purposely gets antagonizes his friends, devalues them in a sense, so they can get angry and show how much passion they have. Very similar scene happens in The Lodger. However, with this scene with the Doctor kind of laughing and giggling over the fact that Amy is currently dead, and the Doctor's kind of, like you can see it, the camera kind of focuses on him, with Rory's in the background so he can't see his expression, but the Doctor's kind of enjoying it, where he's kind of like, I don't have time to save Amy, the whole universe is imploding, a bunch of thousands of people need my life, your girlfriend isn't any more important than the universe, to which Rory Williams just turns the Doctor around and punches him in the bloody face. That, and then the Doctor gets up and he's like, "Ha, Rory Williams, welcome back. Sorry, I just have to be sure that you weren't still programmed by the Autons. Okay, we can save Amy. We'll put her in the Pandorica." I don't know how to feel about that. I feel that kind of makes the Doctor feel a little bit more dickish than he usually is, which is something unsurprisingly I've been saying a lot for these 2 episodes. I don't know. But it's something that the 11th Doctor has done before, and it does play into his character, and it does show that Rory is so passionate that he would be willing just to punch the Doctor just because he insulted her, his deceased partner. Brilliant. So they put Amy in the Pandorica, to which the Doctor explains that she is near to death as physically possible, but she's not dead yet. And the Pandorica has a special, unique ability to constantly revive whoever's in it. You cannot even escape by dying, which shows how paranoid the alliances are. We also see stone Daleks and stones. I can't remember if you guys see a stone Cybermen. You see stone creatures and stone Roman soldiers. And when the Doctor basically explains that time is running out around them, they have been basically fossilized to their end point in their timeline, and nothing's really keeping them safe. They're keeping them alive. The Doctor has River Song's Vortex Manipulator, so he says to Rory, right, we'll go into the future, we'll meet young Amy Pond in the future, however, and she'll be perfectly safe, perfectly fine. But then Rory is like, can you promise me that she will not be safer if I was here waiting? And I love how the Doctor just has to tell the truth, and he's just like, of course she'll be safer with you around, but you'll have to live for 5,000 years. Because you're made of plastic, you're not technically immortal. You can stay away from heat. You can melt. You can be injured. Just stay away from trouble and hope for the best. As the Doctor travels to the future, and Amy and Rory stays with the Pandorica to wait for 2,000 years to arrive in, I believe it's 1996. The young Amelia Pond era was. This is a very important part to the canon of Doctor Who, specifically to Rory Williams, as there have been many stories in prose, and specifically recently with the Big Finish audio drama The Lone Centurion, have there been stories centered around Rory during this period in his timeline, in which he is protecting the Pandorica from anybody who just dares disturb the Pandorica during his protection of it, waiting for the day that Amy would one day wake up in his revival. That's a really cool. The fact that Rory does wait for 2,000 years, and when we cut back to the 2 Ponds, the Dalek seemingly gets revived, but the Doctor suddenly teleported in front of them, finishing his sentence from where he left Rory earlier, only for a security guard to come, and the Dalek scans to show that he is unarmed, only for the guard to drop his torch, and a gun comes out from his fingertips. He's an Auton. only to come out of the shadows to reveal he is actually Rory Williams, who had survived those 2,000 years. And Rory and Amy give themselves a massive snog as the Doctor's just like, what the hell's going on? That light, it seems to be reviving everything and has particles from the original timeline in there. Things that get touched by that light gets to be revived within the timeline. And so young Amelia Pond disappears, and River Song, they learn, is actually at the heart of the sun. For you see, all the stars are dying out. So what the hell is that up the sky? That's not the sun, or at least it's not a star. As the Doctor scans it and realises it's making the sound of the TARDIS dematerialising, and Rory can hear a voice saying, "I'm sorry, my love, Beard River Song," which the Doctor explains that the TARDIS, to protect River Song, has put her in a temporal loop, so that she's repeating the same second over and over and over again to keep her alive, to which the Doctor saves her and releases her out from the exploding TARDIS. And so River Song basically joins this small group of people as they basically defend themselves against the Stone Dalek that has been chasing them. Now, the Stone Dalek is actually a really cool design in my opinion. I wish we got to saw a lot more of it, but this is its only appearance, and it sadly doesn't get a lot of screen time. It seems to be firing, however, because we've only get 4 characters, technically 5, but one of them disappears as soon as it's convenient for her, means that this Dalek, the Stone Dalek, like in Victory of the Daleks, doesn't get to show how cool and amazing this new version of the Daleks was. Even if the Stone Daleks is technically the Paradigm Daleks, now in stone form, which again does lead into the precedent that the Paradigm Daleks kind of suck to the mainstream audience. I personally like the design, however, the stories that they appear in don't really give them justifies the change in their appearance, especially how dramatic the change was in the series with the big lead up in Victory of the Daleks, which is really disappointing. And so they're about to go up the stairs. River Song goes to stop the Dalek, to which the Dalek begs for mercy. Oh no, it's not. Sorry, that happens later. The Doctor, Amy and Rory, I can't remember where River, I think actually this is before River, they're like, right, time is shortening around. Time is becoming so short now that things are happening like nearly at the same time. And when the Doctor goes up to the stairs, suddenly teleports the Doctor, who has been injured, completely injured. The Doctor, just before this scene, recreates the scene in which he meets Rory at the very start of the episode, which he gets the mop, he gets the fez, and he meets the younger Rory Williams from Roman times. However, later on they see the Doctor injured and seemingly dies in front of the Doctor, but not before leaving the younger Doctor a little message. Again, it plays away with that wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey. It's a great way of setting up the story where you have this strange, oh wait, the Doctor's in here. Then we get the explanation as to why with the time-traveling vortex manipulator, basically finishing off like, right, okay, we understand now how that works and how those scenes come to play. We then, the scene straight after is we get this dooming prophecy kind of destiny thing with the dying Doctor standing in front of them and collapsing down the stairs. And then they say River Song, and they try and work out a plan before the Dalek exterminates the Doctor and travels back in time. With River, it's basically like, right, I'll hold them off. You two go and find the Doctor, and we get a very iconic scene, for better and for worse, which actually caused a huge controversy at the time, in which the Dalek begs for mercy after scanning River Song and realising that despite her being an ally of the Doctor, she's not exactly has the same morals as the Doctor. And so he begs for mercy, as River Song kind of has enjoyment of this and is begging, say it again, go on one more time before I kill you. Mercy! It's a really cool aspect for River Song, but again, this does play into the concept of this is clearly an indication that Stephen Moffat just isn't a fan of the Daleks. He doesn't understand them, he doesn't play into their strengths, he clearly isn't interested in showing them as a main threat. The Dalek is kind of there to put a kind of ticking clock on the Doctor and team trying to solve out the real problem of it rebooting the universe. The Doctor kind of has a plan, something to do with the Pandorica, before he gets shot. Only when Amy and Rory arrive at the location they'd previously seen the dying Doctor, it turns out his body's gone. Only for River Song to basically explain rule number 1, the Doctor lies, which I believe is the first time we hear that. The Doctor lies rule, which becomes this very overused concept in the Moffat era, which kind of really drags this story down in hindsight, as we basically learn the Doctor's plan. The Doctor knows that the Pandorica has enough energy in it to allow it to reboot the universe. However, it needs an enormous energy source which will allow it to transport its energy through all of time and space. Luckily, there is a exact place where this can happen. At the sun, at the burning, blowing TARDIS, frozen in a star-like form. However, there's a problem with that. If the Doctor goes in the Pandorica himself, because he's flying it, he will be caught in the epicenter of the cracks in time. And the cracks will not be able to close and heal the universe properly before, without him being on the other end and being in a place of non-existence. Which is really interesting. And we get this really heartbreaking scene in which the Doctor tells Amy, it's like, you've got to remember me. If you can remember me strong enough, I can come back. But you need to be strong enough. And then we kind of get this explanation, which again, I'm not particularly a fan of, where the Doctor basically explains, I did not take you away because I enjoyed your company. It's because your house is too big. Where was your parents? What are your parents? What do they like? What happened to them? To which it's basically revealed that the cracks in time had eaten away on Amy's family. She had lost both her mother and father to the cracks in time, and they were erased from the timeline. I'm not too fan of this. I like the revelation, that Amy's parents were the ones that absorbed in the crack in time. However, I'm not too keen on the Doctor picking up Amy, particularly for this reason. And this is something which would continue on into the Moffat era, especially when we get to the next main female companion that he gives the 11th Doctor, Clara Oswin Oswald. But that's a story for another time. So we get this really dramatic scene in which the Doctor closes the Pandorica and he shoots it up into the heart of the burning building, or the burning star, to which time gets reverted. However, the Doctor kind of has this moment in which he's basically going through the rewind of his entire existence. And we see moments like, we see him, seeing him and Amy going to Space Florida with Amy getting ready. The Doctor tries to call to Amy, and Amy kind of hears this. The Doctor kind of theorises that her living beside the crack in time means that she has kind of absorbed some sort of energy which allows her to remember or strengthen the connection between her and what had been sucked away from the crack in time. The Doctor also sees events with Amy leaving the note in the lodger, to which the crack appears there as well. And then, really, probably one of the most interesting aspects is when it goes back to the Angel two-parter, because back when the Angel two-parter came out, people thought they noticed a mistake. There's a scene in that story in which the Doctor seemingly goes back to give Amy this really cryptic message about remember what he said to her when she was a child, and just trust me. And when on that scene, people noticed that during the scene in which the Doctor shouldn't have his jacket, he's wearing it in that scene. Only for this story to prove that wasn't actually a blooper, that was just a teaser for this episode. So as it turns out, that moment wasn't actually the Doctor from that story. It's the Doctor now, because Amy had to close her eyes so she can't actually see the Doctor. So the Doctor was able to communicate to her without her realising that, that the two Doctors had swapped. And the Doctor then meets young Amelia Pond the night that she waited for the Doctor, to which the Doctor picks her up, takes her to bed, and gives this fantastic speech about how you know, he's going, he's sad, he's leaving, and but Amelia, you're going to be so much amazing, and you're going to have your parents again. You don't need your imaginary friend anymore. And he goes to explaining about his many adventures and the TARDIS, which he says he borrowed. He stole, but he really borrowed. He was planning on bringing it back, apparently. I think the Doctor kind of lied to himself with that. And then the Doctor basically decides he's going to go into the crack now because he hates repeats. And that scene is probably one of the most best acted scenes that Matt Smith has ever done. It's a really powerful moment. A lot of people's memorable, some of his favourite moments. It's Stephen Moffat's favourite bit, which he wrote in terms of dialogue. I'll just be a story in your head. The daft old man who stole a magic box and ran away. Lines like that are just gorgeous. As the Doctor goes into the crack in time and the universe is restored, only the Doctor does not exist. Does that mean that the Time War didn't happen? Because of the Doctor, Time Lords and the Daleks became aware of each other. So because the Doctor stopped being a part of the universe, does that mean the Daleks never went to war with the Time Lords? And when Amy remembers the Doctor, the Time War kind of reinstated itself in the universe. Strange, isn't it? I'd like to know that. Amy wakes up and we see her parents for the first time in the series. Her father's Augustus. I can't remember her mother's name. And we cut then to her wedding, or her wedding, and her father's about to make the speech. But suddenly she gets this book from a mysterious visitor of the wedding, to which she looks at the window and sees River Song walking past. As Amy slowly starts to realise she's crying, Rory is just like, hey, you're crying because you're happy. No, I'm crying because I'm sad. Why am I sad? As she slowly starts remembering. And then when it clicks, she gets up and she's like, right, everyone shut up. Sorry, we cannot continue. There's someone here who isn't here, who should be here. And he is my imaginary friend. As everybody's like, oh no, not the imaginary friend again. Amy, this is embarrassing. Only for her to remember the Doctor, and is like, you are late for my wedding. It's what the old saying goes. Something borrowed, something new, something big, something blue, or something like that. I think that's the saying goes. As the TARDIS materialises in front of them, as the Doctor walks out of the TARDIS and is just greeting Amy's family. He's like, hello, I'm Amy's imaginary friend. But it's nice to come anyway. I'll go and park the TARDIS somewhere else. I only come for the parties. And so we cut to the scene in which Matt Smith's like dancing around, and we all have we're all fun and nice blast. We get this we get the scene in which the Doctor's talking to River, which is essentially just teaser, which is like, oh, River, there's a bit about the marriage, which I do kind of like. More playing into the mysteries of each character and playing off how they both kind of like the mystery of each character. But it does in a way kind of feel like it's like, ooh, what are we going to learn about you, River? Oh, you just have to wait until the next story. what happens next with me. So spoilers. I don't know what that was. I do apologise. And so the story ends with Amy. This scene I actually really hate. Amy goes into the TARDIS with Rory, and she's like, "Hey, Doctor, you were going to leave without giving me a massive snog." And the Rory's like, "What the hell? I'm right here. This is our wedding." And Amy just does not care. Rory gets treated like shit by Amy in the first series. And I honestly don't see what he sees in her in the first series. If he has every right to dump her ass. And that does kind of play into that aspect of Series 5 that a lot of people still don't like about it, and that is the whole love triangle, which Amy kind of seemingly isn't sexually attracted to Rory, but is to the Doctor, and is so open about it to the point where you kind of feel really bad for Rory. And then the Doctor basically explains the mystery. It's not all sorted. What caused the TARDIS to explode, and what exactly is the silence? As it's like, okay, now it's time to say goodbye. It's time to say goodbye. Amy walks through the door, looks out to her home. Goodbye, Lethwood! And they go back in the TARDIS, and the TARDIS dematerializes with Amy and Rory still on board, being the first time since Rose, a companion, two companions actually this time, continued on from the series after into the Christmas special. So that's an important note. And that ending is kind of really frustrating, especially in retrospective, where we realise that nothing really here actually gets proper answers. We never learn what that voice was inside the TARDIS at the end of Pandorica Opens. And when we actually learn like what happened, like how the TARDIS exploded, it's a one-off line in the 11th Doctor's finale, The Time of the Doctor, in a way that just seems like it just felt really disappointing and dull. And looking at the story retrospectively, knowing about that information really hinders this story. But anyway, that is the Pandorica Opens and the Big Bang. Overall, this is going to get me a lot of flack, I think, but I think it's not as good as people make it out to be. There are some really great moments, there are some epic scenes, and some of Matt Smith's best acting, specifically with the two speeches, the one where he confronts all the aliens on Stonehenge, and the one where he's talking to Amelia Pond, where she's sleeping through in the crack in time. There's also some really funny moments. The timey-wimey stuff plays really well into the story. However, a lot of it just feels like teasing up for the bigger story, despite we never really get answers to stuff that's really vital to the story, to the point where, despite the story having some great emotional beats and emotional segments and some great character development, the narrative itself just kind of feels like, okay, we're building it up, so it's like, who's the crack? Who destroyed the TARDIS really? What is the crack in time? What was that voice? To which we never actually get proper answers for later down in the series, really hurting this story retrospectively. And I also feel like it does kind of take an enjoyment that the majority of the story is focusing on teasing other stories. Also to see all of the Doctor's greatest foes uniting against to fight the Doctor is a great idea, a great concept, and when we do get small glimpses of it, it is really cool. However, when I say it's a small glimpse, we get one scene of it, and we never get into the logistics of it to make it make any sense in any shape or form. And it just feels really off, just thinking about it now, personally. So yeah, this is a really strange story, because this is a story I used to defend against people who absolutely hated it and used it as a bookmark in a conversation for why the new series of Doctor Who is dead. Yeah, people used to say that about Series 5. I remember getting into an argument with someone and it got like emotionally heated, And now it's kind of like the roles are reversed, where everybody loves this story so much that they literally cannot find the flaw with it. But personally, I find that there's plenty of stuff to complain about, and I feel like the fact that nobody kind of notices as well does kind of build up my feelings on the story. I would like to state, I do really enjoy this story. I have a lot of blast with this adventure. I just feel like it does suffer a lot in many aspects. So anyway, that is the Pandorica opens and the Big Bang. So join me next time where the Doctor returns to Albert Hall as the 11th Doctor helps and part of the audience members defuse an invisible wire and try and save the proms. So join me next time for The Boy Who Saved the Proms. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!